In this video, we are going to look at a 10-year-old, happens to be a 10-year-old girl. Maybe she's 12, I don't know, but she's certainly close to 10 years old. And she has excellent heel hip function as well as momentum transfer. So let's first watch the swing and see what you think when you look at momentum transfer and heel function. Here we go. What an unbelievable little swing. So first let's define what momentum transfer is. And so this came from Chris Welch, a biomechanist. The easiest way to look at it in a golf swing movement is the relationship between the trunk, really the shoulders, and the arms. So if you look here, you see legs and hips. Large M for large mass of the legs and hips moves slower than the hands and clubs, so the velocity is small. So M is big, velocity is small. So mass big, velocity is small. We go out to the hands and club. Mass is very small, velocity is much bigger. So P equals mv. P stands for momentum. So we want to transfer our momentum from our hips and legs, or legs and hips, out to ultimately the hands and then the club head. So what's supposed to happen is that the golf swing should be initiated by the legs, the ground reaction forces as it's now called. And that term has been used for a long time, long before it's become popular in golf. So you dig into the ground, you use your feet to press into the ground and move the hips. And once you reach peak acceleration of the hips, you're supposed to reduce, you slow, so you peak accelerate and then decelerate the hips. At that point of deceleration of the legs and hips, the trunk and shoulders go flying by. And you can see as we get to impact, the speed of the hips is way down because you don't need that anymore. The whole purpose is to transfer momentum to the trunk and shoulders. And then at the right time, the shoulders decelerate and the arms fly by. Arm decelerates, hands and club go flying by. So when you think about this in the way it's typically taught or discussed, it sounds like it's something that needs to be related to muscular strength and fitness. And that's why I really like illustrating this issue with a 10-year-old who has no muscle mass yet, right? So she's just a little kid, no muscle mass. So she has to rely on perfect movement. So let's first look at what I mean by momentum transfer. So let's get right up to the top. So as we get to the top, you see the relationship of her arm and her shoulders. Okay, watch what happens. So what's going to happen now as she gets to the top of the backswing, her arm is going to press further into her chest. Now that movement is called cross-body abduction, if you want to be specific. Cross-body abduction. So we go to the top. Now watch when she gets to the top, all great golfers. So now her arm is getting closer to her chest, but as she transfers weight, now you can see she's already starting right there, her downswing, before she she's club's going back and her arm is still going backwards while her legs are going forward now. Look at the leg action starting to take place here. Here we go, right there starting, and she's still going back. So you see she hasn't finished her backswing, just finishing her backswing, and she's already going forward. Now look at the relationship of her arm with her chest. You see literally her left arm is pressed against her chest. And she even gets a greater degree of that because she's not contracting. Look at her. Watch her arm, her left arm. It even gets closer to her chest. And she keeps it there. You know, if you talk about over the top move, no over the top here. Over the top move is when you take your left arm, and I mean, it's the most obvious thing to see, and you move it past your trunk too early in the swing. That's what most amateurs do, not this kid. So let's look at how long she keeps that left arm. Now you see the difference here. When she was in her backswing and her chest was facing like this, her arms were out here, which means that she has this perfectly, it's called, well, she's pre-stretching her various downswing muscles, those being posterior delt, her external rotators of her scapula and arm, and her latissimus dorsi. So as she comes down, now look at this relationship. Do you see she's literally starting to move right about now off of her a little bit, but still, look at that. So she hasn't released, so to speak. She hasn't let her arm fly by yet, which is coming right there. Now, of course, she's unbelievably flexible, can stand close to the ball like all great players. But this is a perfect example of transferring momentum from her upper trunk shoulders now to her arms into the club. It's unbelievable. It happens so fast, less than a third of a second. Okay, so this is a beautiful example of momentum transfer. And again, you obviously don't need muscle to do this. You need to have properly timed movement from the ground up, as I showed you in this image here, which is what she does perfectly. Or it looks perfectly to the naked eye. It probably is pretty close to perfect. But let's look at her left heel. So top of the backswing, she literally gets the top of the backswing and like sinks into her heel, particularly her left heel. Now watch, when she gets right to here, you can already see her left foot moving. Look at her left foot. Look at her left foot. Her hands aren't even parallel to the ground. Her arm isn't even parallel to the ground yet, and she's already getting, see she's getting off of her. This is called the forefoot. So right here, the balls of your feet are here, toes. This is called the forefoot. This is midfoot. This is rear foot. The heel's rear foot. So watch what happens. You see how she's coming off. Now look at her forefoot on her left heel rise up. Well, why is it rising up? Because she is expertly, at 10 years old, loading, putting her weight, bearing weight on her left heel so that her left heel and left hip serve as the axis for body rotation from here into the follow-through. You can see her left forefoot come up even further. See that? Look at this. Long before impact, look how far up her left forefoot is off of the ground, and she's rooted. She's sunk into her left heel as the axis point, and she's rolling out onto the lateral arch. And there's impact. You can see even more. You can see her left heel bearing the load. Her left forefoot is rotating slightly towards the target. A perfect example of how to use the left heel hip axis during the downswing and follow through, and a perfect example of momentum transfer. And why is this such an excellent video to watch? I just got lucky one day, by the way, and I saw it on Twitter somehow. I guess the father or mother posted it because it's an unbelievable movement. But I think what is lost when people watch this is they just see how flexible she is, because she clearly is. She's 10 or whatever, very young. But what we should be looking at is her perfect left heel hip function and momentum transfer. So what you should do is get a slow-mo video of you from the down the line view just like this, and then compare your movement to her movement. Look at your lead foot. I mean, most golfers are swing ready, so you want to look at your left foot, look at your left heel, your left forefoot action, and then see how long your arm stays connected to your body during the downswing. I mean, this is just right up here, it starts to come off. I mean, this is amazing. See where you are at this point in time during your swing, how much space there is between your upper arm and your shoulder. I guarantee if you're not a great golfer or a really good golfer, it's way off and you're on your forefoot. You want, the enemy of the golf swing is moving the arms and hands before the shoulders have reached peak acceleration and swinging from your toes or your forefoot, and that is what most people do. And again, which is why I use her as an example, is because she has no muscle mass. She can't do pull-ups and push-ups and lunges with weight. She's a little girl. So this just illustrates perfect motion. You don't need to be exceptionally fit. You need to just have proper movement skills. So you need to learn to move, swing from your heels, and I have an entire appendix in the Amateur Golfer's Dilemma. 30 pages about how to swing from your heels. Really, really worth the read. And this child does it naturally. And most people who can do this, they do it naturally. I saw a video when I was looking on YouTube to find anyone who talks about how to use the lead heel properly. And this one golfer says, yeah, all good ball strikers roll out onto their lateral arch. And we just do it somehow naturally. Yeah, exactly. So those of us like me who don't do it naturally need to learn how to swing from the heels and the hips. So you want to check out that 30-page appendix in the Amateur Golfer's Dilemma to check that out.